Imagine a world where two civilizations, separated by an ocean for millennia, are about to collide. A collision so dramatic, so world-altering, that its echoes still resonate today. This is the story of an emperor and a conquistador, of gods and gold, of prophecy and steel. This is the story of the fall of the Aztec Empire. Our story begins in 1519, in the heart of modern-day Mexico. The magnificent city of Tenochtitlan floats on a lake, a jewel of canals, pyramids, and bustling markets. It's the capital of the mighty Aztec Empire, ruled by the revered and powerful Emperor Moctezuma II. Moctezuma is more than a king. He is a high priest, a living link to the cosmos. His world is one of intricate ceremony, cosmic cycles, and powerful, often terrifying gods. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a different kind of ambition is brewing. From Cuba, a fleet of 11 ships sets sail. At its helm is a man of ruthless ambition and iron will, Hernán Cortés. He's a Spanish conquistador, a product of the Reconquista. Driven by the three G's, God, glory, and gold. With just a few hundred men, a handful of horses, and some primitive cannons, he's sailing toward a continent whose vastness he can barely comprehend. When Cortés and his men landed on the Mexican coast, they were unlike anything the local people had ever seen. Men with pale skin and hair like the sun, riding on strange, powerful beasts, horses, and wielding weapons that spoke with thunder and fire. News of these strange arrivals traveled fast, reaching the ears of Emperor Moctezuma in Tenochtitlán. According to Aztec prophecy, one of their most important deities, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, had sailed east long ago, promising to return one day. The prophecy foretold his return in the year 1 Red, which, by a chilling coincidence, was 1519. He sent emissaries with lavish gifts of gold and turquoise, hoping to appease these potential deities, but also perhaps to persuade them to leave. But for Cortés, these gifts were not a sign of peace. They were a confirmation. They were proof of the immense wealth that lay ahead, and it only hardened his resolve to reach the heart of the empire. Cortés was a master strategist and a brilliant opportunist. He quickly realized that the Aztec Empire was not a monolithic block. It was a collection of city-states, many of whom bitterly resented Aztec rule and the heavy tributes they were forced to pay, including human sacrifices. Cortés formed crucial alliances with disgruntled peoples like the Tlaxcalans, fierce enemies of the Aztecs. Suddenly, his small force of Spaniards was bolstered by thousands of experienced native warriors, all eager to see their Aztec overlords fall. On November 8, 1519, after a long and perilous march, Hernán Cortés and his men stood before the causeway leading into the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan. What they saw left them speechless. A city larger than any in Europe at the time, an urban marvel of engineering and beauty. And there, to greet them, was Emperor Moctezuma himself, carried on a magnificent litter adorned with quetzal feathers and gold. The two leaders met. An emperor who believed he might be meeting a god, and a conquistador who saw a kingdom ripe for the taking. It was a moment pregnant with history, a tense meeting of two worlds. Moctezuma, still grappling with the prophecy and perhaps seeking to control a dangerous situation, made a fateful decision. He invited Cortés and his men into the city. He housed them in one of his father's palaces, treating them as honored, if uneasy guests. For a week, there was a fragile peace. The Spaniards were dazzled by the city's wealth, the intricate markets, and the towering pyramids. But they were also horrified by the evidence of human sacrifice, which solidified their view of the Aztecs as heathens in need of Christian salvation. But the hospitality was a mask for a tense standoff. Cortés knew he was in a precarious position, trapped in the heart of a city with hundreds of thousands of Aztec warriors. So, he made a bold, audacious move. He took Moctezuma hostage. Under the pretense of a skirmish that had happened back on the coast, Cortés placed the emperor under house arrest within his own palace. The living god of the Aztecs was now a prisoner in his own capital. From this point on, Moctezuma became a puppet ruler for the Spanish. He ordered his people to remain calm, to cooperate with the invaders, and even to collect a vast ransom of gold for courts. The Aztec nobility grew increasingly angry and humiliated. Their emperor seemed weak, a shell of his former self, and their city was occupied by disrespectful foreigners. The situation exploded while Cortes was away, dealing with a rival Spanish force on the coast. His lieutenant, Pedro de Alvarado, fearing an uprising during a religious festival, ordered a massacre of unarmed Aztec nobles and priests. The city erupted in fury. When Cortes returned, he found Tenochtitlan in open rebellion. The Spanish were now besieged in their palace. In a desperate attempt to quell the uprising, Cortes forced Moctezuma to go onto the palace balcony and speak to his people, to calm them down. But his authority was gone. The crowd, feeling betrayed, unleashed a volley of stones and arrows at their former emperor. The exact circumstances of Moctezuma's death are contested. Spanish accounts claim he died a few days later. Around June 29, 1520, from the injuries sustained from the stones thrown by his own people. But Aztec sources tell a different, darker story, that the Spanish, seeing he was no longer useful to them, murdered him. Whatever the truth, the bridge between the two worlds was now burned completely. With Moctezuma dead, the Spanish fought their way out of the city in a bloody retreat known as La Noche Triste, or the Night of Sorrows. They suffered heavy casualties, but Cortes escaped. He retreated to the safety of his Tlaxcalan allies, but he was not defeated. He was determined to take Tenochtitlan. What followed was a brutal siege. Cortes had ships built in pieces and reassembled on the lake, cutting off the city's supplies. But the Spaniards' most powerful weapon was one they couldn't even see: disease. Smallpox, for which the indigenous population had no immunity, ravaged Tenochtitlan. It wiped out up to 40% of the population, killing warriors, leaders, and civilians alike, shattering the Aztec social fabric and their ability to resist. After months of relentless siege, starvation, and disease, the once mighty Aztec capital finally fell on August 13, 1521. The magnificent city was destroyed, and a new one, Mexico City, would be built upon its ruins. The prophecy of Quetzalcoatl certainly played a role in Moctezuma's initial hesitation, a psychological blow that Cortes expertly exploited. But it wasn't the whole story. Spanish steel, guns, and horses provided a significant technological advantage. Cortes' strategic genius and his ability to forge alliances with other indigenous groups were absolutely critical. And finally, the silent, devastating killer disease was perhaps the most decisive factor of all. The fall of the Aztec Empire was not just a conquest, it was the collision of two separate branches of human history, a dramatic and tragic story of ambition, misunderstanding, and immense loss. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. We'll see you in the next video.